Welcome back, everyone. Today we will be reading the final book in the Odyssey, Book 24. So let's get into it. Book 24: How Odysseus Found His Old Father and How the Story Ended. Cyllenian Hermes came to summon the souls of the dead men. He held the rod of fine gold with which he enchants the eyes of men if he will, or awakes those who sleep. With this he stirred them, and they followed, gibbering. They were like a swarm of bats in the hollows of a great cave, which hang clinging to one another from the roof, until one falls out of the chain, and they all fly about gibbering in confusion. So Hermes, the master trickster, led them along the moldering road, and they gibbered as they went. Past the stream of ocean they went, past the rock of Lucas, past the gates of the sun and the realm of dreams. And then they came to the meadow as asphodel, where abide the souls of phantoms and those whose work is done. There they found the soul of Achilles, Pylades, and Patroclus, and the admirable Antilochus, and Aias, noblest and handsomest of the Danaan host, after peerless Achilles. These were standing together, and the soul of Agamemnon Atreides joined them, grieving with the others who had been killed beside him in Aegisthus' house. Achilles first addressed him thus: "Prince of the house of Atreus, we always thought you the nearest and dearest of heroes and men of thundering Zeus, for you ruled over a host of mighty men in that terrible war before Troy, and yet it seems you were doomed to perish before your time. Although death comes to every man who is born, would that you had met your fate before Troy, still enjoying that honorable state of royalty. Then the whole Achaean nation would have built you a tomb to keep a glorious memory of you and your son both. But it seems you were destined to die a most pitiable death." The soul of Atreides answered, "You are happy, royal prince of the house of Peleus, that you died at Troy far from Argos in the battlefield, with friend and foe falling on either side, fighting for your cause. There you lay in the whirling dust, grand in your cause. There you lay in the whirling dust, grand in death, as once grand in life, forgetful for your horsemanship. But we fought the whole day long, and never would have ended the fight, but that Zeus made an end with a tempest. We carried you off the field and laid you upon a bier. We washed your body with warm water and anointed it with oil. Hot tears were shed from many eyes, and the hair was cut from all heads. Your mother came out of the sea with the immortal daughters of the sea when the tidings reached her. Their loud lamentations resounded over the deep, and trembling took hold of all the Achaean host. They would have leapt up and taken to their ships, and had not a wise man restrained them, Nestor, whose counsel had proved the best many a time before. He spoke to them gently and kindly. Back, men of Argos, do not run, brave lads of Achaea. His mother has come out of the sea with the immortal daughters of the sea to visit her dead son. The Achaeans took heart and stayed their flight. Round about the body stood the daughters of the old man of the sea, wailing lamentably, and clothed in unfading raiment incorporeal, incorruptible. The 9 muses sang the dirge with their lovely voices, answering each to each in turn. You could not have seen one tearless eye in the host, when all were so deeply moved by that sweet song. 17 days and 17 nights we mourned you, mortal men and immortal gods together. On the 18th day we gave you to the fire, and slew around you fatted cattle and sheep. You were burnt in raiment of the gods, with honey and oil in abundance. Troops of armed warriors marched around the pyre, both horse and footmen, with a loud resounding noise. And when the fierce flame had consumed you, next morning we gathered up your whitened bones, and laid them with pure wine and oil in a golden urn which your mother gave us. She said it was the work of famous Hephaestus and a gift from Dionysus. In that urn lie your bones, Achilles mingled with the bones of Patroclus, your dead friend. And another, the bones of Antilochus, whom you honored above all others after Patroclus died. Then all our armied host built for these three a great and notable tomb on a headland of the coast, above the wide Hellespont, to be seen from the sea afar by men who now live and those who shall come after. Your mother gathered fine prizes from the gods, and set them up for a contest of the best men. Often enough you have been at the funeral games of the great, when a king has died and strong young men gird themselves for the prize. But had you seen those prizes, the beautiful prizes which Silverfoot Thetis had provided, you would have marveled indeed, for the god loved you dearly. And so, although you are dead, your name is not forgotten, Achilles, but it will be renowned forever throughout all the world. But as for me, what pleasure have I in this, that I wound up the war? For at my return Zeus had ready for me a cruel death at the hands of Aegisthus and my accursed wife. While they were conversing, King's messenger, Argophantes, drew near, leading the souls of those whom Odysseus had killed. The two princes moved towards them, surprised at this sight. Then the soul of King Agamemnon recognized Amphimedon, who had entertained him in Ithaca. He said at once, "Amphimedon, what disaster has brought you here under the black earth, all picked men and year-mates? If one were to choose the best men of your city, he could make no other choice. Did Poseidon raise a wild storm and a heavy sea and swamp your ships? Did the enemy fall on you ashore while you were cutting out cattle and sheep? Or were they fighting before their walls for their wives and homes? Answer me, for you are my host and friend. Do you not remember how I came to your house to enlist Odysseus in the war of Menelaus against Ilion? It took us a whole month to cross the broad sea, and it was a hard task to persuade Odysseus, who brought us victory in the end." The soul of Amphimedon answered, "I remember all that quite well, royal prince. I will tell you the miserable story of our death as it happened. Odysseus had been long absent, and we were wooing his wife. She hated the thought of marriage, but she would not refuse outright or make an end of the business, because she was planning death and destruction for us. Here is one scheme which came out of her meditations. She set up a great wide web on her loom, and fine stuff it was, and she said to us, 'You lads who seek my hand, now that Odysseus is dead, I know you chafe at the delay, but give me time to finish this piece of cloth. I don't want to waste the thread. It is to be a shroud for Laertes, when all-destroying fate shall carry him off in dolorous death. I do not wish all the women to be shocked if he lies without a shroud, when he had been lord of great possessions.' Our proud hearts consented. Then she used to work at her great web in the daylight, and unraveled it at night by torchlight. Thus for 3 years she managed to deceive the whole nation. But when the seasons came round again in the 4th year, one of her women, who was in the secret, told us, and she caught her unraveling that fine web. So she had to finish it, much against her will. And when she took down her web and washed it and showed it to us, shining like the sun or the moon, then some devil of a god brought Odysseus from somewhere and put him on land's end where the swineherd had his place. Then back comes his son from Pylos over the sea, and the two together make their plan for our death. First Telemachus came back to town, then the swineherd brought Odysseus clothed in rags and leaning upon a staff like some old beggar. There he was, a disgusting sight, and none of us could know who he was, not even the older men. But we received him with rude blows and words, and he puts up with the rude blows and words in his own house, bides his time, if you please, until Zeus Almighty set him to work. Then he and Telemachus carried off all the armor and weapons and locked them up in the storehouse. And the cunning schemer told his wife to bring out the bow and iron axes and propose a contest, which was the beginning of our unfortunate death. None of us could bend the great bow and string it. We were far too weak. But when the bow was on its way to Odysseus, we all shouted out not to give it. Whatever he said, only Telemachus would have it so. Then Odysseus received the bow. He strung it easily and shot through the axe heads, went and stood in the doorway and spread the arrows before his feet, glaring terribly, then shot Antinous. After that, he took aim at the others in turn and shot them down with those arrows of sorrow, and they fell one after another. It was clear that some god helped them, for they now rushed along the hall furiously, striking right and left. Hideous cries and groans came as the heads were smashed and all the ground ran with blood. That is how we perished, Agamemnon, and our bodies are still lying uncared for in the great house of Odysseus. Our friends do not know it yet. They have not yet come to wash the blood from the wounds and lay out the bodies for mourning, which is the honor due unto the dead. The soul of Agamemnon answered, Happy Odysseus, always ready for every danger. What a wife you have won, with a dower of noble gifts. What a true heart and keen intelligence has the incomparable Penelope. How well she remembered the husband of her youth. The fame of her virtue shall never be forgot, and the immortals will make upon the earth a lovely song for faithful Penelope. How different she is from the daughter of Tyndareus, who concocted a vile plot and murdered the husband of her youth. What a hateful song will be sung of her among men, and she will bring an evil name upon all women, even such as are good. So they conversed in the house of Hades, in the caverns under the earth. Meanwhile, the others passed through the city, and soon came to the snug farm of Laertes, which he had made his own by his own hard work. There was his house, and there were sheds all round in which the serfs lived and fed and slept and did what he wanted. Among them was an old Sicilian woman, who looked after the old man carefully when he was in the country. Here Odysseus gave his directions to the serfs and Telemachus. Go indoors, all of you, he said, and kill the best pig for our dinner. I am going to try if my father will know me when he sees me, or if I have been away too long for that. Then he handed his arms to the serfs, and they went indoors. Odysseus passed on to the vineyard to make inquiries. He did not find Dolios as he went down into the enclosure, nor any of his sons or underlings, for they had all gone out with the old man to collect stones for a wall round the vineyard. So he found his father alone in the vineyard, digging about one of the plants. He had on him a dirty old shirt full of patches, with patched leather gaiters to save his shins from scratches, and leather gauntlets against the brambles. On his head he wore a goatskin hat in the carelessness of his sorrow. When Odysseus saw him at last, worn with age and full of sorrow, he stood still under a spreading pear tree, and the tears came into his eyes. What should he do? Should he throw his arms around the old man and kiss him, and tell the whole story of his return? Or should he first question him and see what he would say? On the whole, it seemed better to try a few words of pleasantry, so he came near. The old man was stooping down and digging about one of the plants when his son stepped beside him and said, "Well done, Gaffer. I see you know how to look after an orchard. It is in fine order, and there is not a single tree or plant neglected in the whole place. Not a fig tree, not a vine, not an olive, not a pear, not an herb or vegetable. But don't be offended if I dare to say you are not so well looked after yourself. Old age is bad enough, but you are all over dirt, and your clothes are no credit to you. If your master neglects you, he can't say you are an idler. But there is nothing of the slave in your looks. You are more like one of the quality. More like one who would have a bath and a good dinner and soft sleep as an old man ought to have. Tell me now, just to satisfy my curiosity, who is your master? Whose orchard is this? There is something else, too, I want to know. Is this really Ithaca, as that fellow I met just now said it was? He didn't seem to be quite all there, wouldn't answer questions or listen to what I had to say when I inquired about my old friend, whether he is still in the land of the living or dead and buried. I tell you this, and don't make any mistake about it. There was a man whom I entertained in my own country. He came to our house, and there never was a foreigner who was more welcome to my house. Said he belonged to Ithaca, said his father was Laertes, Arsacides. I took him into my house and treated him handsomely, entertainment of the best, the fat of the land, gave him such gifts as a guest ought to have. 7 talents weight of wrought gold I gave him, and a bowl of solid silver with flowers all around, 12 sheets, 12 blankets, 12 fine robes and tunics to match, not to mention 4 women as clever as you like with their fingers, and good-looking too, at his own choice. His father answered with tears, "Stranger, that is the man whose country you have reached today, but how violent and riotous men possess it. And so you have wasted all that heap of gifts which you gave him. If you had found him alive in Ithaca, he would have made a good return for your generous gifts, and entertained you as handsomely. Quite right, too, when one has a debt to repay. But pray tell me this, and satisfy my curiosity. How long is it since that unhappy man was your guest, my own son, as indeed he was, poor fellow? The fishes have devoured him somewhere in the deep sea, or he has been the prey of beasts and birds on the land, far from home and friends. His mother and father did not lay him out and lament him, their own son, nor his precious wife and true-hearted Penelope. She did not close his eyes on the bier, her own husband, and lift up her voice in sorrow, as she ought to do as a last honor for the dead. But there is something else I want to know. Who are you, and what country do you come from? Where does the ship ride which brought you here with your honorable companions? Perhaps it was not your own ship. You are a merchant and a passenger, and they just left you here." Odysseus answered, "Very well, I will satisfy your curiosity. I come from Wanderland, where I have a great estate, and I am the son of Lord Neverstent, Grieffontein. My name is Battledown. Ill luck beat me out of my course from Sicania. and brought me here against my will. My ship lies off the farm, and some way from the city. And this is the 5th year since Odysseus left my home and country. Unhappy man. Yet, indeed, there were good birds for him when he went, on the right hand, which made me glad to speed him on his way, and made him glad to go. Both our hearts hoped that we should meet again in friendship, and give each other splendid gifts. When he had spoken, a black cloud of sorrow came over the old man. With both hands he scraped up the grimy dust, and poured it over his white head, sobbing. The son's heart was wrung, and bitter passion pressed through his nostrils as he looked upon his dear father. He made one spring at him, and threw his arms around the old man, and kissed him, crying out, "Here he is himself, my father. I am the man you were looking for. After 20 years I have returned to my native land. Weep no more, grieve no more, for I have news. And there is need of haste, sure enough. I have killed the men who sought my wife in my own house, and paid them in full for their violence and outrageous deeds." Laertes answered, "If you are really Odysseus, my son, come home again. Give me a clear sign to prove that you speak the truth." Odysseus said, "That wound, first of all. Look, here it is for you to see. You remember how the boar gashed me with his tusk as I ran on him? And you and my mother sent me to her father, Autolycus, to receive the gifts which he promised me when he stayed with us. Yes, and let me tell you the trees you gave me in this jolly orchard when I was a little boy, and went round the garden with you and begged for each. We walked among these very trees. You told me their names, every one. 13 pear trees you gave me, and 10 apples, 40 figs, rows of vines you promised, 50 of them bearing at different times through the vintage, with grapes of all sorts, whenever Zeus made them heavy in the season of the year." The old man's knees crickled under him, and his heart melted, as he heard the signs recounted which he knew so well. He laid his arms about his son's neck, and Odysseus held him fainting. But when he had recovered and come to himself, once more he spoke and said, "O Father Zeus, verily ye gods are still abiding in broad Olympus, if indeed these evil men have paid for their violence. But now I am terribly afraid that soon all Ithaca will be here in force, and they may send summons to the Cephalian cities." But Odysseus answered, "Courage, let not that thought trouble you. But now let us return to your house near the orchard. I sent Telemachus ahead with the drover and swineherd to get dinner for us as soon as they could." They set out at once for the homestead, and there they found Telemachus and the other 2 men carving the meat and mixing the wine. Then the old woman bathed Laertes, and rubbed him down with soft oil, and wrapped a fine robe about him. Athena stood by his side, and put fullness into his limbs, so that he seemed stronger and bigger than before. When he came out of the bathroom, his son was astonished to see him, like one come down from heaven, and he said in plain words, "My father, surely one of the immortal gods has made a new man of you, taller and stronger than I saw you before." Laertes answered, full of spirit, "Ah, by Zeus and Athena and Apollo, if I were the man I was when I took Nericon, that strong fortress on the shore of the mainland, when I was lord of the Felinians. And if I had been yesterday by your side with armor on my shoulders to fight with those riotous men, many a one would I have killed and made your heart glad." While they were speaking, the 3 had finished their task. The meal was ready, and they seated themselves about it. As they were about to set to, in came old Dolios with his sons, tired after work, for their mother had run out in good time to fetch them. That is the old Sicilian woman who used to look after Laertes so carefully now that he was old. As soon as they saw Odysseus and knew him, they stood there amazed, but Odysseus spoke kindly to them and said, "Sit down, Gaffer, and don't be astonished. We have been waiting a long time for you, as hungry as we can be." But Dolios ran straight to him with open arms and caught the wrist of Odysseus, kissing him and crying, "Oh, my dear master, so you have come back when we never hoped to see you again. God himself brought you. Bless you and save you, and may God grant you every happiness. Tell me, does my lady know that you have returned, or shall we send a message?" Odysseus answered, "She knows already, Gaffer. You need not trouble for that." On hearing this, the old man sat down again, and his sons, like him, welcomed Odysseus with word and hand, and seated themselves by their father. While they were busy with their meal, rumor sped all over the city with the news, telling how the pretenders had come to a miserable end. The people, on hearing this, gathered from all quarters before the house of Odysseus, with groanings and loud uproar. Each family took their own dead and carried them home for burial. Those who came from abroad they sent away in the charge of seamen, each to his own city. Then they held a meeting of the whole town and crowded into the marketplace sorrowing. Eupathus first rose to address them, full of indignation and sorrow for his son Antinous, whom Odysseus had brought down with the first shot, with tears rolling down his cheeks for his son. Eupathus said, "My friends, here is a monstrous thing this man has done against our nation. First he goes off with a fleet of ships and a lot of fine fellows, loses the ships, loses the men, and comes back alone. Then he kills the best of the Cephalians. Come now, before he can escape to Pylos or Elis and the Apennines, let us move, or we shall be disgraced forever. It will be a blot upon us in generations to come if we do not punish the murderers of our sons and brothers. Life would be nothing to me. I would rather die at once and lie in my grave. Move quickly. Don't let them steal a march on us and get over the water." The people all filled with pity to see his tears and to hear his words. But suddenly Medon and the minstrel appeared on the outskirts of the crowd. They had just waked up and come straight from the house, and there they were in the midst of them to the amazement of all. Medon spoke up confidently and said, "Give me a hearing, men of Ithaca. The hand of God is in this. I saw myself an immortal god standing beside Odysseus and looking exactly like Mentor. An immortal god now in front of Odysseus and encouraging him, now sweeping through the hall to scare the ladies' wooers, and they fell in heaps." The listeners went pale with fear. Then spoke the old man, Halitherses Mastorides, who alone could see forward and backward, and he gave them wise advice. "Hear me, men of Ithaca, for I have something to say. Your own fault has brought this about. You would not listen to me or to Prince Mentor when he warned you to restrain your sons from their folly. It is they who did the monstrous thing in the recklessness of their hearts, wasting the goods and dishonoring the wife of a noble man, for they thought he would never return. Then listen to me now and do as I say. Let us make no move, or someone may bring trouble on his own head." This brought loud cries of applause, and more than half of those present sprang up from their seats, but the others sat still and kept together, for they did not approve the speech, but obeyed Monsignor Plausible. These very soon went away for arms and armor, and when they were ready, they appeared before the city gate. Eupathus took the lead, foolish man. He thought to avenge his son's death, but he was destined to find his own death, then and there, and never to return. Now Athena was watching, and she said to Zeus Cronion, Cronides Almighty, father of us all, let me ask you a question. What plan is hidden deep in your mind? Will you still contrive war upon war and battle upon battle? Or will you make peace between these two parties? Zeus Cloud-gatherer answered, My dear child, why do you ask me such questions? Was not this the plan of your own mind, that Odysseus should come back and punish these men? Do as you like, but I will tell you what seems the right thing. Now that Odysseus has had his vengeance, let them make up the quarrel, and let him continue to be prince as before. But let us pacify the blood feud for these dead sons and brothers. Let them all be friends as before, and let peace and plenty abide with them. This was just what Athena wanted to do. Away she went down from the peaks of Olympus. Meanwhile, Odysseus and his friends had finished their meal. And now he said, Someone go out and see if they are coming. One of Dolios' sons went out of the door, and there he saw the whole body of men close at hand. He turned to Odysseus and said simply, Here, they are close by. Let us arm at once. They were soon ready, 4 led by Odysseus and the 6 sons of Dolios. Laertes and Dolios too armed themselves, warriors perforce. Armed and ready, they issued forth from the door with Odysseus at their head. Then Athena came near in the form of Mentor, and with Mentor's voice. The sight made Odysseus glad, and he called to his son Telemachus. My son, now you have come to the place of battle, where the best men are proved. You will know how not to disgrace your fathers, since our line has been notable over all the earth for courage and valor. Telemachus answered, You shall see, if you will, my dear father, that my spirit shall bring no disgrace upon your line. Laertes was full of joy and cried out, What a day is this, kind gods! I am a happy man. My son and my son's sons are rivals in courage. Athena came near him and said, Old friend, and dearest of all my comrades, pray to Father Zeus and his fierce-eyed girl, poise your long spear and cast it now. She breathed strong passion into him as she spoke. He uttered a prayer to the daughter of great Zeus, poised and casted his long spear, and struck Eupeithes in his helmet of bronze. Right through the Marion it went, and the blade came out on the other side. Eupeithes fell in his armor with a crash. Then Odysseus and his brave son fell upon the foremost, and struck them with sword and spear. They would have made an end of them all on the spot. But Athena, daughter of Zeus Almighty, lifted her voice and stayed them all. Stay your hands from battle, men of Ithaca. Be reconciled, and let bloodshed cease. They stood aghast, pale as death. At her voice, the weapons slipped from their hands and fell on the ground. All turned and went back to the city, for they did not wish to die. Odysseus shouted loudly, and gathering himself together, he swooped on them like an eagle from the high heaven. But Zeus cast a blazing thunderbolt before the feet of Athena. Then the goddess said to Odysseus, Odysseus, Laertides, prince never unready, hold your hand, make an end of war and conflict, and fear the wrath of Zeus Cronides, who sees all things. Odysseus obeyed gladly with all his heart. After this, Pallas Athena, daughter of Zeus Almighty, in the likeness of Mentor, and with Mentor's voice, made peace between both parties, and ended the strife forever. That's it. That's the last chapter of the Odyssey. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. I know I stumbled on a lot of those names there, but we got through it nonetheless. Next week, we will be starting something a little bit easier, but something a little more heavy in content. I'll be starting Trigger. Let's see. Trigger by Susan Vaught. This story involves a young man, a teenager, I believe, who attempts suicide but lives and cannot remember exactly what has happened. So we go through his journey of trying to remember why he did it in the first place, and how he did it, and how what led up to him feeling the way that he did before doing it. So it is a little bit heavier in content for some viewers. I will have a warning in front of every single video, just to remind you guys. But it's one that I ended up having to read in high school, over a bunch of other books. We had like summer reading that we had to do. I'm not sure if they still do that anymore. But this one was a good one. So we'll see you guys next week with Trigger.